It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for the secret handshake. Tune in and reach through the veil. It's time for monthly Mormon Monday.
Today we're going to do something new, hopefully at the start of a new series with my friend Heidi Luv. And here we're going to even start out because it's not necessarily an interview. This is the monthly Mormon Mondays. And we've been playing with the idea. Maybe we'll get a little intro or something. But the idea here is that I'm fascinated by Mormonism for a number of reasons. One, the Masonic connection. That's a big one. Two is that it is uniquely American, and it's one of the youngest, I guess, like big religions that you can still sort of historically poke at. And three, it's just a delight. It's full of magic and underpants and like silly stories, and I love it.
If you're going to say delight, it has to be white and delightsome.
I see, and I want to understand what this means because I was surfing the like Ex-Mormon Reddit and some of the other forums for all these weird memes, and people are going crazy and laughing, and I don't understand even half of them. So I want to go through some Ex-Mormon memes with you today too.
Let's
and just see what any of this stuff means. Maybe I can get in on some of it. So first of all, plugs up front. Heidi Luv, tell people where they can find you.
Awesome. Yes, I'm Heidi Luv. I'm at the Unfiltered Rise. You can find me everywhere podcasters serve, but especially on Patreon. I have a new series called Blood Atonement, and it's specifically about murders, Mormons, and mayhem. So we are only covering the murders and mayhem that go with specifically some Mormon connection. So not delving just straight into, I'm not ever leaving my Mormon connection behind because this is like what I am. So
I like that.
Not anymore.
I like the consistency of theme, and I've never really heard of Mormon serial killers. I actually, coincidentally, I did a song on an album called Cult Classics that you can find on Spotify. It's called Mormon Serial Killer, but it was just because I liked the idea that there was this like very devout Mormon that was also just happened to be a psychopath. But you were actually telling me before we started, so maybe we can get a little preview of some like Mormon murderers. It was like some brothers or something.
Yes. So the Lafferty brothers is a huge case here in Utah. And actually, he's still alive. One of the two are still alive. He's about 65 years old, Dan Lafferty and Ron Lafferty. They came from a family out in American Fork. And they were mainstream, but the dad was very strict. Like one time he beat his pet dog to death because it didn't do what he said. One time, one of the kids they were playing, shot himself with an arrow, and it was like, it needed medical attention. I don't know where. I think it might have been the foot. It wasn't a critical organ, but he told the kid it's Sunday, so we can't go to the hospital till tomorrow.
Oh yeah, you walking off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a nurse. So like my kids have to have an arrow before I'll do that. And if it's not so bad, I'll stitch it up myself. But they don't really like that. But 10 out of 10, they don't want mom doing that. But these guys were very strict and odd, kind of off the beaten path of the mainstream, but still a highly regarded family because this is an educated family. These are not hillbillies out in the woods. Their dad was a chiropractor. They were both chiropractors. They have like major degrees. They've gone to college, all the things. They've done all the things. So it was kind of surprising. And so it was a big case out here. And basically, the rundown is the brother Ron told, there's many brothers. There was like 9 kids or something. I don't have my notes down here because we were just talking off the cuff. But sorry, of course, my asthma's going to act up. So the brothers were very tight. And this girl, the youngest brother, Alan, he got married to this girl that was a little different. Her family was Mormon, but they were very... like she had gone to college, which isn't that normal back then for the girls that are Mormons. She was a beauty queen. She was a journalist and she got her degree and wanted to do that. So it was different for her, and she made some waves in the family, and they didn't really like her. And the other wives were really submissive. And so, and there was enmeshment in the family. Like the brother, Ron, was like enmeshed with his mom. She basically treated him like a non-sexual husband. Like there was no sexual innuendo, but she relied on him for everything. And he was like the best and the most knowledgeable one and all the things. So
now,
he was
typical in Mormonism already, or are all these things like, so this isn't out of the ordinary within like a strict Mormon community?
Well, I will tell you this. There's some things that go along with knowing. Now, the Mormons don't think they know. They know the church is true. This is a direct quote from Dan Lafferty. They know the church is true. They know the prophet's true. They know the revelations are true. They know the Book of Mormon is true. So they really like ingrain this stuff in you since you're a little kid. So doubt is not really a thing at all. And if it is, it's a huge problem. And so when Ron starts saying he's receiving messages from God, revelation, we've been raised with this. This is not a new concept, right? Our church president right now gets revelation direct from God. And this was and Joseph Smith did, and all the people. So it's kind of a thing where you go, okay, yeah, maybe God told him that. But what God told him was,
I'm Roman Catholic. So, I kind of always believed as a kid too, that the same thing happened with the Pope, that like the Pope goes in his fancy little room and he sits on a gold chair and God talks to him. And then he comes back out. But
he's the only one. He's the only one, which makes it easier and better. Because even when Joseph Smith was alive,
I agree. And Heidi Luv just confirmed that Catholicism is better than Mormonism.
I do think they got off course with the whole saint worshiping because it's Santeria-y, but minus that and, the Queen of Heaven, Mary connection, we won't go there. But the whole thing is that, yes, I do think they are more correct because at least they believe in the Trinity, which Mormons don't. And they believe in one person to organize things. Do I think other people can't pray to God and get an answer? No, I don't think that. But at least their organization of their church, if you're going to organize something, you can't have people willy-nilly like, oh, me too. And I have a rock. And that happened when Joseph was alive. Like when Joseph was alive. They did have
a head start. The Roman Catholic Church had a pretty big head start on Joseph Smith. So I don't want to.
Joseph had all the books. Right?
I don't want to get too tangential here. We're talking about this Mormon
I have to take
killer.
An allergy pill.
The killer brother.
The Lafferty brothers. And so the Lafferty brothers are kind of these young, handsome chiropractic doctors. I have to take an allergy pill. I'm sorry. It's bad. My basement's trying to kill me because I'm pretty sure I need to test. Anyway, I'm very house cleaner, but I don't like coming down here because it's cold. So the Lafferty brothers were, kind of an up and coming. Like, look at these guys. They're great. They're handsome. They're, all this stuff. So they were highly regarded family. And, when he came to his mom and said, I get revelations, nobody thought he didn't. And his little brothers were highly influenced by him because he was the golden one. He was like the golden child. Like if Ron said something, then that was true because the mother. And so long story short,
outside their town, or is this just like a small thing?
It was a very small town. American Fork is it's bigger now, but back then, we're in the 1980s. So back then it was pretty small, and they, like I said, they're doctors. So I don't know how many doctors chiropractic wise were in the area at that time. So I think they would have been pretty highly known. Anyway, the brothers were reading Joseph Smith's works, and they decided they were going to be fundamentalists because the church was doing it wrong and all this stuff. So they made this thing called the School of Prophets. And then Ron was saying he was receiving all this revelation and dreams and blah, 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 blah. So this is why the Bible says don't just randomly trust everything, because you might be talking to a bad spirit. You might be talking to who knows what, we don't know. So you got to be careful with stuff. And it even says, if an angel comes in my name, giving you another book, it's a lie, which so right there, Mormonism is probably out for most people if you really believe in the Bible. But whatever you want to do with it, people, they believed in it. They believed in the revelations. And one day Ron was like, my wife left me because your wife told her that I wasn't a good guy because I like to beat her. And she took our 6 kids to Florida. So yeah, I think she needs to die because God said. And so they go through with this. They literally get there and the other brother is like fully, he said, and I quote, Ron was the mind of God and he was the arm of God. So he was the one that did the killings. And even now, when he is interviewed, they made a whole series about this you have to watch called Under the Banner of Heaven. It's on Hulu and they did a fabulous job with it. Like all of the Mormon temple stuff they do on there, it's true. Like I know because I know. It's like when I watched Sons of Anarchy, my uncle was a very extreme biker and I was like, this is true. They do this. So I can tell you, I can vouch for the series.
Turned me off because in the first episode, they like tell some guy, they're like, you go hack the FBI database. And it was like, does
okay, maybe not that. Yeah, no, not that. But the cutting the tattoos off and stuff and calling it going to church, all that's true. But I mean, some of it, yeah, it's far-fetched. But the Mormon series, this series is really true. Yeah. And they made a book about it. It's kind of like a enhanced biography, I guess, type situation. It's John Krakauer and it's called Under the Banner of Heaven. I've read the book. I have the book. The book is more detailed. I mean, they're not going to put the gruesome stuff that happened like on there. They almost decapitated them. So they get to the house because
together to do this.
Yes, the brother. So Ron gave him the revelation, and not funny, but the odd thing is he told the guy that is the husband to the woman that got killed. He said, "Hey, I got a revelation from God, so your wife's she's gotta die, and your kid, even though she's like not even 2, she's 18 months old." And he's like, and he said it really nicely because remember, this is the chosen brother, like the special brother. He just looked at him and said, well, if you try to do that, I will defend my family with everything I have. And so, like, come at me, bro. That's kind of how I felt, like he was like, and no. So, but also it was odd because he was gone the day of the murder working in Ogden, which is about 80 miles away north. And it was a holiday. So it's kind of odd that he was gone on a holiday. He also made sure to like wake his wife up in the middle of the night, which was unusual for them to like have sex. And like he made sure to wake up the baby, even though it was really early, and said goodbye to her. There was some sketchy stuff, but maybe he was just like scared. I mean, also he could have just been like, I love you guys so much. Like I could see that too. If somebody said they might be coming for my wife, I might be weird too. I don't know. I think I would call the police like that. That would be my choice. But also if it's your brother and he's never hurt any person, like you would hopefully assume that, your brother. I mean, what do you do? So
well, who are
they
you
went over there?
A prophet of God.
And that's the thing. I really do feel like this indoctrination, because if you go and listen to the interviews with Dan Lafferty at a later point, even Ron, they said, do you feel bad about this? And he said, no, I don't, because I was told by God that I was to do this. And he relates it to the story in the Book of Mormon where Nephi kills Laban for the plates. Have you read this part of the Book of Mormon or heard it?
This part.
It's okay. It's just one time. And I always felt this was a really weird thing for God to tell Nephi in the Bible, but whatever. He's like, hey, your cousin has these plates, and if you want them, you're going to have to kill him. And so I'll help you, and I'll take you to where he is, and he's incapacitated because he was drunk, and you'll have to kill him. So he takes his sword out and slits his throat. And then we used to have the slitting throat thing in the 80s. Before this murder happened, which is why I think they changed it, because also it looked really bad because they slit their throats, and they did it to the point where they almost decapitated, like it went through bone. Like this was brutal. Yeah.
Are we talking ancient Mormon history? Or are we talking 80s right now?
No, we're talking the 80s.
Both 80s.
Well, yeah. I mean, There is much speculation that blood atonement is still in practice and has been in practice in the Mormon church. However, the church will deny this vehemently. I have studied it, and there are multiple cases, but they can't prove that the call came like who's the shot caller, right? Like in prison, right? Like they can't
do you think
prove.
the shots are coming from the top of the church?
Do I? I think there's been many shots called from the top of the church. There's something called the second atonement, the second anointing, where if you receive the second anointing, how we talked about the temple stuff last time and getting your endowments and all that, if you are high enough up in the church, and I think mostly a man, I don't know that any woman would ever receive the second anointing because we don't have the priesthood. They give the second anointing to certain people that have to carry out things like murder or crimes or whatever. And it doesn't matter if they commit those things, they will still go to heaven.
Right.
So
We
they're
talked
kind
about
of
that
like,
one before. I'm still trying to figure out how I can get in on some of that action. That just sounds
right.
true.
Yeah, you can do anything then. I mean, at that point, you're just clean. You know, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, I don't think it's true for sure. It's kind of like when the Catholics sold their tickets to heaven. I can't remember what that was called, but that was a thing for a minute back in the Middle Ages.
I'm curious the practicality of that. Let's say you get one of those like special get out of hell
ticket to heaven.
cards.
Yeah.
Get into heaven free. Like how do you present that? Like, does that give you any special access here on this plane, or does it only matter once you die?
Well, you're obviously highly regarded to even get to the point where you've got a second anointing.
So I think an official announcement that goes out that's like, hey, everyone.
No, this is super secret. No way. They'll deny this. This didn't even come out as a thing until basically Google, right? Google is the road to apostasy is what the Mormons say, because anything that you look up on Google is going to tell you like more facts, and the church can't be like, oh crap, like hide that under the rug like we did back in the olden days. So, and it wasn't even supposed to ever be known. And so it got out. Somebody spilled the beans, who knows why. And this is a thing that they do because, you know, back in Joseph's day, they had to do killings. They had their own militia, the Mormon militia. They were almost as big as the United States Army at one point. Like that's why they had these wars between the U.S. government and the Mormons. And it was bad. Like they came here to Utah, but they only came to Utah because it was part of Mexico. It wasn't part of the United States. They left the United States for a reason. There was a lot of problems. And so they didn't want to sustain the president of the United States or any of the government of the United States. So people forget that part and then they ended up getting it through that whole deal with Mexico. And then here they are back in United States again. So there was a lot of problems with the church and the government.
Did Joseph Smith ever fight anyone?
I mean, he rode on a horse and he took some pictures, but I don't know how much he put himself out there. Who knows? They do say he was really strong. They said he was really strong. They said he would fight people, but I can't see putting him on the front lines. I mean, he was tarred and feathered. He was beaten up. He went through it for sure.
Well, didn't he carry like 200 pounds of gold through the forest while he was running from people too? That's right. That would take some serious muscle.
Yeah. And then where do you hide them? I guess he had to dig a hole that big too. I mean,
jump over the prison first.
Don't even. Yeah. Could you imagine? They're square. Oh my gosh.
Through God, you can do anything.
Well, this is true. He might have been of great fortitude of the anal. So I don't know. I'm so bad. Okay. So Lafferty, they got a hold of these teachings and they made the school of prophets. They wanted to follow more closely to what the fundamentalists think. And I always say the fundamentalists are more accurate in the way they worship Mormonism because they follow it to the letter. It's been changed so much every time someone's offended or like every time, something changes, they're doing PR stuff. That's what they're doing. I mean, they're very smart church and the fundamentalists are like, no, we don't care how bad it looks. We're not doing that. We're going to do the old stuff. So, and that was part of them becoming
actions of fundamentalists, or is fundamentalists?
So many. No, there's breakoffs. So first we have the FLDS main church, which is the Jeff's clan, but then you have tons of other ones that say no, he really wasn't the prophet, and then we have the RLDS and little branches off that. I mean, it goes all over the place. There's little factions everywhere. Just like Jacob and those guys believe something totally different than mainstream. He would be considered a faction, like his group. What they do. So, I mean, this is kind of a thing that happens as people examine documents more, or people try to remove things from the church that people are like, no, we're not doing that because Joseph said this or whatever. Or people that don't believe Brigham should have been sustained, all this stuff. So there's some polygamists, fundamentalists that look like Little House on the Prairie. And there's some that look like just normal, but they have really always long shirts down to the wrist because their underwear are the long underwear, like I showed you before. So they have to cover them. I just got a smattering of very random questions, and I realize that you might not speak on behalf of all Mormons on some of this, but I'm just curious on like if there's like a general sentiment. So like one example is transhumanism, right? Like if you were to explain the concept of taking the human soul and putting it into a robot body, is there anything inherently offensive to Mormons about that? Is that congruent with Mormonism? I think I'm going to say what I think, but it might not be what other Mormons think. I think the church is heavily involved in transhumanism. I believe that they are very on the cusp of all things that are changing and evolving. They're very, into that, and they're very into everlasting life. So it would not surprise me at all if they're involved with transhumanism. The Mormon church is very involved in politics, right? Not just Mitt Romney. This is like, I'm going down a little trail right now because I'm trying to do these Mormon murder examinations. There's a lot of speculation with the guy that shot Reagan. They had, their last name was Hinckley, or was it? Yeah. Yeah, Hinckley.
Yes.
And so one of our presidents of the church was Gordon B. Hinckley. So when I looked up David Hinckley, it said it was his grandson. Now I have to make sure of some dots because there's probably a lot of Hinkleys beforehand, but they were very close friends with President Bush and his family. And in fact, had dinner with David Hinckley's family, had dinner with the Bushes the night before that popped off. So just so people know that.
Oh, you and you conspiracy theorists and your coincidences.
I know for a fact on that one, but I don't know for a fact on the grandson part until I check some genealogy. So I'm in the middle of that right now. But I do think it's fairly possible. But minus that, if you watch Thomas S. Monson shake hands with some of the presidents back when he was alive, they're doing out in the open the Masonic handshakes. And I don't think that's supposed to happen regardless if you're a Mason or Mormon. It's supposed to be kind of secrety, like not out in the middle of they took a picture of it. Like, I don't know what they were doing up there. Like if they thought they were like in the clear, but they definitely were not.
That's a great point because I've seen lots and lots of those pictures. Like Tex Mars has Codex Magica and just got a bunch of politicians, and you see like the thumb is on a certain knuckle in certain pictures.
Well, this one was like more obvious because it was the lion's paw one, and that one is obvious. It's not sneaky like the others. Okay, some of those other ones you can
right, and you don't necessarily accidentally do that one. So yeah, that's and I wonder, is that really a secret or is that something else? Like, I'm not sure if it is.
If the Masons are not supposed to do that out in the open, I know the Mormons are not supposed to do that out in the open. I'm sure you guys are. I wouldn't think so. I would think that's a Mason secret thing, like.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I do think that's not supposed to be out in the open because I don't think they want their stuff out like that. Like
I have probably a non-standard view on it, but I think that the secrets that they don't want in Masonry are things that you really can't convey. And it's more, I've had this described to me this way, and I'm just going to steal it, but it's the same way that you don't stand up in a theater and shout out like, that's the killer in like the first 5 minutes and ruin a movie for everybody.
Right.
Like you would get kicked out of a movie theater and people would be understandably upset.
Very
at you.
upset.
So
Yeah.
that's sort of one of the ones. And then also we've got the secret to life and the child sacrifice stuff, but that's the real secret.
Well, yeah. I mean, that. I mean, Alex Jones.
You got to put gas in the car somehow, people.
And so all of these things I'm kind of like, I watch and they're very politically involved. And when you see that with a church, and I know there's connections with other things as well. And I want to look more into like the WHO and like different leaders that are involved with the church. Like there's been some things and I don't want to just blurt it out until I have some receipts. Now the picture I blurted out because I've seen the picture, but anything else like that, I like to have almost a picture or some sort of something very solid before I just go. Cause I'm not like a regular conspiracy theorist. I like to have receipts. I just think it's necessary or you look like a goofball, I mean, this is the way it is. So that's how I am.
Do Mormons believe in magic? And the reason that I ask this, cause I know it's very broad, but like, Joseph Smith had these talismans and a ceremonial dagger on it, and I want to know where
his cup is. But
I want to know like where the magic come from. Like pre Mormon Joseph Smith, it seems like some of these talismans were in his family, and it wasn't just something that he created for his religion, right? Like it predates his concepts of Mormonism, or is that up in the air?
It's up in the air because we don't have proof that anyone else in his family had a talisman. I find it hysterical that his brother's name was Hiram. There's some things, obviously, they were involved. They were Scottish. The mother was the first generation to be born here. And I just think that she had a lot more knowledge than what people think. And also they try to play them off as like dumb farm people. They weren't. The brother Hiram went to Dartmouth and it was inside the school and it was considered the Indian school, but it was still inside the school. It wasn't. And he went home. People say, well, that was him. And he was smart, but he came home every weekend. Okay. And it's not very far from his house. And on top of it, what are you going to bring the sick kid that can't go do things because he was sick from typhoid and his leg was all messed up for years, like healing. So what are you going to bring a kid that can't do anything? A book. Like, sincerely, this is stupid. And I do think he had a copy. I think his family had a copy of the Magus, but they deny that. They deny that. And so it's like, you can't ever prove that part. Even the magical bag that I showed you, they even say, oh, that was Hiram's, even though Hiram was never a treasure digger. His dad was verified. They had court cases against these people. This is verified via the US government that they were treasure diggers. He and Joseph Smith Jr., which is Joseph Smith, who we call Joseph Smith. He was Joseph Smith Jr. And so as far as normal Mormons now, they aren't, but I'll tell you, they really do a lot of things. I was just talking about this with my husband because in the Lafferty case, they were talking about, they were so like odd that they would even put a string and make a pendulum with a needle and do it every night at dinner and hold it to see what thing they should eat first after they prayed. And if it like went to that thing or whatever. Well, I remember my grandma doing that to me when I was pregnant. And then I asked my husband, did your family, because we're all from Mormon families, did your family ever do this kind of stuff? And he said, yes. And so did my ex-wife's family when she was pregnant. So it's little folk magic-y stuff. It's not
water divining. Huge. It's the same thing as detecting gold. You're detecting if you should dig into the mashed potatoes before the broccoli.
Yeah. Literally, that's what they used it for. And then for me, if it went in a circle, it was a girl, and side to side, it was a boy. And I remember my great grandma doing this, and nobody was like, hey, that's kind of not, you're practicing magic. What
happens if they're doing that and you're like, hey, check this out. And you put a Ouija board out on the table. Yeah. Then everyone freaks out, right?
No, no Ouija boards. It's a very fine line of weirdness. Like, oh, we can do this, but we can't do that. It's just like the coffee thing.
Yeah, we can drink. What other magical things are you allowed to do that are like weird?
I mean, the church isn't going to sanction anything, but I do see in Mormon families very I mean, what is the line between revelation and conjuring? That's my question for this. Like,
what do you mean by that? Because I guess for me, revelation just means you got like an inspiring message from God or something. Does it
well,
mean
let
something
me
different
tell
in Mormon?
you what they do when we're about 14, between the ages of, we'll say 12 and 18, they give you something called your patriarchal blessing. Have you ever heard of this before?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is great. This is magic-y, and it's a little like it's fortune telling, pretty much. So you go to the guy, the patriarch of your little ward, which is like your church, your local little church, and he says, "Oh, it's time for you to know the things." So you go in, and he does laying on of hands, and they do this special blessing with other people. They anoint you with oil on the top of your head, and then they lay their hands upon your head. And it's weird because they do this little thing like this, and you can feel it on your head that it's like moving, and it's just their hands, but it's usually at least 2 people, if not 3 to 4, because you can bring a family member, the bishop is there, and the patriarch is there.
Everyone does this?
Everybody gets and puts their hands on top of your head together. And
Everyone
then they
goes through
say,
this, I mean,
"Oh, well, I mean, I guess if you didn't want to." My husband never got his because he like was outie. He was not going to do that. But yes, it's available to everyone in the church and encouraged to get before you're 18. So, or if you're a new convert, like you would get it when you're old, whenever you come in. So they give you this blessing and say what's going to happen in your life. They give you like, I cannot find mine. Before I get kicked out of the church, I need to request it because I'm not technically not a member, because I want them to kick me out. Because if they kick me out, they'll absolve my temple marriage. Whereas if I ask to have my records removed, that's only my half, and they won't do that. So it would be better for me if they did the whole excommunicating, because then it's like
go
it
egg
never
a temple
happened.
somewhere, or is it more complicated than
I thought they would do it by now. Like my one friend that was Mormon too. She's like, they did it to me right away. And my other friends have told me they did it to them right away. And I'm like, this is so weird. And she's like, you must have like a really strong family name or something. And I do. I mean, I'm related to everyone, but I just am like, geez. And the door knockers still come and try and get me back all the time. I'm like, I've straight told them I'm a complete apostate, and they just come back. I'm like, okay, whatever. I guess next time I'll just tell them, like, Jacob told me to come to church with him and that they would kick me out then. So maybe I'll do that. That I believe in Jacob's teachings, and then they'll kick me out, because they did his really fast. He's like, that's really weird. I'm like,
it sounds like a service that he could even offer. Like a fast track to get out of the Mormon church and take your records on the way out.
I need that, but they don't give you your records. So I've got to get that stupid thing before. I thought I had it in my cedar chest, but it's not here anywhere. I probably threw it away. But
so are there any factions of Mormonism that you know of that embrace magic, that are like, hey, we believe in all the teachings plus magic? Or is it like the table for everyone?
I think if they did something like that, it would be this is the thing we need. I'll talk to my friend about this, because he's a guy. I think it would be more in the patriarchs of the family. I don't think that they would tell the women. We just don't get that kind of information. We're making crafts in the next room while they're doing like real stuff.
Yeah, you're making the super secret snacks.
Yes, we make the green jello. If you've ever been to Utah, the joke is we're making green jello, because apparently Mormons love green jello. I don't know.
Is that true?
And casseroles. It's a thing. It's like a funny thing. Everybody brings green jello if it's like a potluck. I don't know. You can look it up. It's got real statistics that we consume
green jello in the Book of Mormon somewhere.
I know. I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, green is Lucifer's Abram color. I don't know.
So
no, his is black.
do the talismans start and end with Joseph Smith, or do those pop up anywhere else in Mormon lore?
I think they got smarter because too many people saw Joseph Smith and were like, hey, what's that about? But I will say this, Brigham Young was known to wear a bloodstone, and he has pictures of him with it. He also has pictures of him doing like the Masonic pose with his hand and the jacket thing. And they have like different things like that they have of Brigham Young. I know he wore a bloodstone all the time. They have tons of pictures of it. So I do think stone magic. I mean, the whole thing was started with a stone, right? Like his little peep stone. So it makes you wonder. I mean, they got kind of smart and they got to the point where they weren't going to just tell people like, oh, this is what we're doing. Cause look at what happened with Joseph. Then they were trying to steal it. Then everybody else was trying to do it. I mean, yeah, it became a situation. Like even his cousin, which was Sidney Rigdon. Everybody talks about Sidney Rigdon and they're like, oh yeah, that guy helped Joseph. No, that was his cousin. Yes, he did help Joseph Smith. But, these people were all interweaved for or Oliver Cowdery. That was his cousin. Sidney Rigdon. I don't know why I can't say that name. Helped him and also saw revelations, also had a stone. So I think they kind of stopped that because too many people were like, you know what? I got a stone. Want to see mine?
I'm wondering like what stops people today from saying like, oh, I got a stone and I just found this. Is there something that's written into the doctrine that's like after this date, no one's allowed to find stones?
No, pretty much Joseph just kind of started excommunicating everybody that were having visions. And so I'm like, okay, but that only stopped them then. But you have to understand everything started getting really secretive after everything popped off with Joseph Smith. Everything kind of went underground as it does, right? Like look at the Rosicrucians, like all this stuff. When you start getting too much out in the open, they're going to stop doing that because it got him tarred and feathered. It got him kicked out of everywhere. It got him, persecuted and killed and blah, blah, blah. So I think Brigham Young was like, we got to zip it up, even though he did still wear the bloodstone openly. I think there was more, and I need to study more about like if it continued, but he's the only one that we have verifiable like talisman, but bloodstone, like why would he wear it all the time then? Because he just thought it was pretty. Like, there's something up there, but I think that we're doing magic in the temple all the time. I mean, I think those ceremonies that we do are magical, to be quite honest. And then you've got the forever mirrors that we use that face each other, which is very witchcrafty. They do this stuff. Those temples are open all the time, except on major holidays and like late at night. But I think they're open till like 9 at night. Or something. You can go till late. This is an all day thing, all day, every day thing. So they all also have spires at the top.
Are there supernatural abilities that are claimed by any Mormons?
I mean, who knows, right?
Talking to God and prophecy is some of them, but is there like flying or super strength or
no, but the patriarchs, like I was telling you about that patriarchal blessing, because they tell your future. If you live by the word of God, this is like what your life will be. Like Heidi, you'll grow up, you'll get married to a righteous husband, you'll have righteous children.
What did they tell you?
That I would have a good husband in the church, that I would bear children, not just have children, like bear children. That and this is all very conditional. It's like, if
like they pop off your back like gremlins,
right? Gremlin babies. And then, so it was very like, and it after every good thing they give you, they say, if you are good and righteous and blah, 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 this will happen. So, I mean, it's basically 1 page long. It's not really big, but everyone knows that the patriarch of the church is like this for every person in the ward. Like he's like your fortune teller. So that's kind of weird, but
is it private or does it get like, does the people start talking like, oh, did you hear Heidi is supposed to be a movie star?
Yeah, you're supposed to keep it private. You're supposed to keep it. And they do say certain things like you'll be successful or whatever, but it's all conditional, as is the whole Mormon church is conditional. But
do they give you the or else part too? They're like, here's all the good things that'll happen. And if you don't, here's what'll happen.
You just get like, if you don't, then you won't get it. Basically, it won't come true. So, But it's interesting that he has that knowledge for every person in a ward. We're talking hundreds of people. And I do find it interesting that each of the temples have spires. Like if you go back to Old World and Conduction and these mirrors, like it's more about, I think, for me, what I think is everything is hidden because the normal church people would not just go ahead. Like my in-laws are the most straight-laced people that you would ever meet. If they straight up knew they were doing magic, I don't think they'd be Mormons. But we're doing things for the dead. I mean, that's like necromancy right there. Like that should creep some people out. And then, we're sending our 12-year-old kids into the big basin with the cows, golden cows holding up this basin that looks like a belly to me, like a belly of the beast. And then
again. This is getting dangerous.
I know it's very Malachian. I'm like, okay, this doesn't remind me of anything I once saw with the virgin children getting in and being like fake sacrifice, but whatever, that's fine. Who knows what we're really doing in there, right? Like, I know we all go do it. I know it's very like, this is what you're going to do as soon as you become a teenager. And it's weird. You're
Does
just
anyone
baptizing
freak out
dead
in that?
people.
Has anyone as a kid ever had a story of like, and that's when I was like, hell no, and I try to get out? Or
this was my husband just said, I didn't want to go because all these guys my husband's kind of shortish. He's like 5'9", and he's like, I wasn't like a man yet. And some of those guys were like full grown men and you have to wear a white jumpsuit and it's see-through basically. And I was like, man, I didn't want to go for the opposite reason. I was like a full grown woman and I didn't want to go because of that, because I was 12 and 5'9". So I didn't want to go. Yeah. Everything was all in its place. Yeah, you just are so used to it. You're so used to it that you're like, yeah, this is just what, I want to go. Yeah. My grandma told me this. I'm going to save people. I'm going to help people. Like, look at this. If you look at the baptismal font, put in baptism for the dead font, it's kind of creepy. And you're excited because you're like, it's my first time I've ever got to go to the temple because you can't go in there.
Baptismal font
for the dead. You have to put for the dead. Mm-hmm. So it's very, it's supposed to represent the 12.
This is the South Park thing where they baptize the dead people.
Yes. Yep. And it's supposed to be the 12 tribes of Israel is what it's supposedly to represent. But like, yeah, when you're getting in there and you're in this room, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And you're kind of in a basement area. It's not the best. It's kind of
Is there just
scary.
One of these, or are
they're in every single temple? Like, there's one.
Has one of these?
Every temple. And I have a temple. So just to give you perspective, like, because a lot of people think of only the Salt Lake temple. So Salt Lake's about 30 miles from me. In between Salt Lake and me, there's at least 5 temples. So like, we're talking mass scale of these. And you're a kid, you don't know why there's cows. Like, you're just like, what is happening? And you get dunked like 5-6 times in a row.
Do you ever see this room before or after that? Or
never.
Is this like a one shot?
Well, you can go again. If you petition to go again, you can go again. But you cannot just go willy-nilly. You have to.
How many times can you petition? Can you just be like, this is my favorite thing ever, I'm doing it once a month?
Yeah, you probably could. Yeah, you could. As an adult, it's not done. Like, we save it and give it to the kids. Because it's a kid thing. It's like once you get your endowment, and you have to be 12, unless they've changed it. Back in the day, you had to be 12. And it was just like, this is our social for the week. Yay, we're going to go get in the cow bath. And then we're going to have ice cream. And so
I like how this is a kid thing. This doesn't when looking at this doesn't seem like a kid thing.
No. And it doesn't feel comfy either. And it's not, and you're going through puberty and you're odd and you're just like, and they're white baptism jumpers and they give you underwear, but the underwear are white. Everything has to be white. And so you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't covering up anything. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Who's present for this? Yeah. Is this just friends and family, or is this like the...
Oh, no, your friends and family do not go. You just go with your young women's and young men's group, and you go with your church leaders. And then who knows who can see you out in the audience? There's like an audience area on the other side of that, and you can't see them.
Who's in the audience?
No, we can't see them because of the lighting. When you're up on stage and you can't see the audience very good because it's so bright, it's like that. So who even knows? Maybe they're recording this and selling it for weird stuff. Because I'm telling you, it's see through. Like
even
I
in
wasn't
retrospect,
comfy.
you don't know who was in the audience. Like who like.
Mm-mm.
Would you be allowed to, if you were still a Mormon, be like, hey, I want to be in the audience one day?
Not unless your child was doing it. And then you have to
Okay.
petition special. And it's usually not like you don't want your mom there. You're like, Jennifer's mom came? How lame. Like, what? Like, this is like our special thing, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a few other things here. I'm on like weird Mormon stuff that I don't.
Okay, this is actually fun because I'll tell you why that hat is significant. That's Joseph Smith's hat.
I'm gonna describe it just in case anyone's just listening.
Yeah.
So first of all, who are we even looking at here?
So this is the current president of the church. This is our prophet. This is considered our prophet. So
okay, so we got Mr. Prophet wearing all white, like straight up white tie, white shirt, white jacket, white
because
everything.
that's his temple clothes. That's his temple clothes. So not the temple clothes that you wear when you're doing the ceremony, because you wear a robe and stuff, the one-sided robe and all that crap over it, but you have to wear all the way white underneath. So yeah.
Well, I assume he's wearing white shoes too.
Underwear, shoes, everything.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's he touching here? It's like a key or?
Well, isn't that interesting? Because Russell M. Nilsson is a doctor and he's also a member of the Allen Key. So that wouldn't surprise me. But he's also
is he doing something Mormon here? Or is this like a secret?
Well, you know what that is. That's only, he's not even supposed to do that except for at the veil of the temple. I don't know if that was an accident, but that is one of the signs. It doesn't look like an accident.
I mean, he's posing for the camera. Yeah. He's dressed up. The lighting's on. This probably wasn't the first picture they took.
And why is he with who? What's the statue about? Like, I want to know what that's about because that looks like Dionysus. If I weigh in on that, but whatever. Maybe they made that as a joke because of all the gods, like Olympic gods, but. Either way, he's doing the token. We got him
sniffing a hat in like a vaudeville act, I think.
Yes, he is actually putting on. That is the magical hat that Joseph Smith, that they denied. See, this is why it was so important that he did this. This is the first time anyone's ever brought out the hat. There's all these vaults. I would pay so much. I don't have enough money, but I would love to, like, if we could go break in together, this would be amazing. But they have secret vaults where all the secrety stuff is underground in their tunnels, and that would be so awesome. But
they're just like the Vatican's got a vault, so now we need a vault.
Well, they need a vault to hide their stuff. So they brought this little guy out of wherever it was because they never ever talked.
This white hat is the hat, like not a reproduction of the hat.
Well, so they say. So they say this is the hat, and I'm shocked. It
looks like it's in great condition, especially for a white hat.
Yeah, it's probably been in glass containers since he died. You know, but I'm telling you, before this, nobody talked about the hat. Like that hat and Peepstone story was not a thing. That was not a thing. We Google into your little Google thing, unless you can't. If it will screw us up, do it at the end. But Urim and Thummim LDS, because this
that's going to come up. I actually have something on here that'll come up.
So we'll get to that. So he actually made a big production and arranged this photo shoot with Joseph Smith's hat and put it on. So that's what he did.
Is that sacrilege to put Joseph Smith's hat on your head?
We have never. I'm telling you, the hat was not a thing. Just like how Kolob is not a thing. This hat was not a thing. Like this was not like magical as far as we knew until like maybe a couple years ago when they couldn't hide it anymore because of the whole thing, you know? And so I would be surprised if this other handshake one isn't made, like somebody made it, because I don't know that he'd do it outside of, but he might have. I don't know.
All right. And then we've got a picture of a bunch of dudes just waving their handkerchiefs in the air.
I don't know what the hell's going on there. That's weird.
Is this like a men's only thing? Maybe you're not even allowed to see that picture.
This is probably at conference. We have conference twice a year. And I always say we, because I was a Mormon forever. But twice a year, they don't have church. And instead, they have church on TV. And so this looks like conference or some kind of talk. But I'd have to research that one. That's weird. I don't know what that is.
So here's one talking about a creepy church smile. And I guess
that's real. That's
and
real.
I've heard people mention this, and it's a little bit foreign to me because, again, Roman Catholic, if you're smiling, you're having a good time, which means you're not
You're in
paying
trouble.
attention, and you might even get yelled at. Like, you need to look like you're going through pain, and that's how you know that you're paying attention. So this creepy church smile, I mean, I assume I know what it means,
real.
but they're talking about it as if the person writing this said that, like, they even looked around and saw that it was weird, but then they themselves also did it, because if you don't do it, then it's like you're not fitting in, and then all of the drones like hone in on you, I guess, right?
Well, and then you're supposed to always be like, that's why I say it's kind of like the Kardashians, because you're always supposed to be your best self, you know? And even William Ramsey, when I spoke to William Ramsey, he said, you know, it's kind of really like their Stepford wives. And he's like, nothing about to you, but I wonder like how Stepfordy it gets. And I'm like, no, you're right. It's right. That's right on the money. Like, and the men are taught, and it's not just the smile. The worst part is go listen to them speak. They have an unnatural, unassuming, feministic voice, and it has made me, I have never dated a guy that doesn't wear work boots and like almost a caveman. Like, I can't, like, it creeps me to the top.
Mitt Romney talk. I get the idea.
Yeah. It's like this weird, unassuming and everything. And it's sing song. My husband calls it Mormon sing song. And it's really strange. It's almost hypnotic. I think there's more to it than just being unassuming. I think they know some things there, but that's just me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. What do you want?
So this one says it's a picture of just a hallway, and it says, I got too high and now I'm in the Mormon back rooms. And then it's just a bunch of people talking about, I can smell this picture. One person said, I've only ever gotten a rug burn in a Mormon hallway on the wall or something. Like, what?
Because the carpet.
What do you mean? What is the Mormon back room?
So the back room is where all the church offices are. So this is where the bishop's office is, or the library. It does smell funny because there's a library back there. It smells like stale. That's how it smells. Stale and paint. And then they have this weird, see how there's that stuff on the wall? It's almost like a thick wallpaper or like a carpety wallpaper. And that's what he means about the rug burn.
What is just identical in every temple in the whole country?
In the churches, not the temple. I mean, the temple probably has them too.
What's the difference, I guess? What's the difference between a Mormon temple and a Mormon church?
You can't go to the Mormon temple, but you can go to a Mormon church. Mormon church is just like, they'll let anybody in. You could go right now if it was open, if somebody was there and they'd ask you why you're there. But if you were like, I'm here to play basketball, like they have basketball games in there. They have weddings in there. They have church in there on Sunday.
We're summoning demons. Do you have a free room?
That's the temple. But yeah, this is like your normal church. Like there's always something going on because there's Women's Day where the women get together, and then there's Men's Day, and then there's Kids Day, and there's basketball teams. And I mean, they put on plays, and so it's, they do a lot of stuff.
I mean, all the Catholic churches have their little administrative wings too, although I don't think that I ever was in there. Here's a bunch of just craziest experience in Mormon church, and I had to shrink some because they got into very uncomfortable places. So anyways, I cherry picked a few, but this one is saying the craziest, and I think they're just explaining just the regular practice, but it says going to temple where there's special religious ceremonies akin to Masonic rituals.
See, not where you go to church on Sunday. See the person above, not where they put going to the temple, not the chapel. The chapel's the church. The temple. Oh,
that's what you were just describing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So going to the temple and not the church. So that's the fancy one where all the magic
happens. You try to go to the temple without a temple recommend and they have a barcode on it, you will be escorted by the police out.
Wait, without a what?
A recommend. So you get a recommend. It used to look like a card, like a little credit card, but now I bet you they've gone they're very on the up and coming. I bet they're all digital now. I bet it's on your phone. But they used to give us a card that had a barcode on it, and it has like your picture and everything. Like they verify who you are. You can't just sneak in.
I mean, if they really want to embrace futurism and transhumanism, they could start doing the.
They're going to get the chip.
You just scan your wrist on the way in.
But they're pretty weird about the chip. I don't know if they would. I don't know, but I never thought they'd do the 2020 thing, and they did. So
there's a line here that says "veiling my face on command." Now, is this because it's part of a ritual, or can someone just walk by you and just be like veil, and you got to put the veil down? Like, how
this is a girl. This is a girl. Only the women have to veil your face, because you have to veil your face when they talk about the priesthood at a certain time, because we aren't worthy to see that. And they have taken that part out because it got really controversial. And so now they don't do that anymore. Okay.
So this is another interesting bit about why I think Mormonism is so fascinating, because we can see some of these changes happening in real time, and people point out and be like, hey, before 1990, this happened.
This is somebody that's old. This is somebody that's old because A, they said veiling their face. B, they also said Pele-El, which they do not say anymore. They took that out.
What is this? What is chanting in Adamic language, Pele-El?
Adamic language. See, that hasn't happened since before I went. And remember the picture I showed you where they're all in a circle and they've got their arms up like doing this number? Mm-hmm. They used to say Pele-El, but now they say, oh God, hear the words of my mouth. They changed it. But actually, there's a really funny beer named Pele-El. But anyway, El is like Elohim. And so they call Elohim God. And so.
And you're saying ALE is EL?
EL.
Like ale is L?
They didn't spell it right. Yeah. No, it's L as an EL. But Pele-El is a funny beer name here. But yeah.
Well, it obviously sounds like a beer name.
Yeah, there is.
So here is one that says I was only 19 and they did all that in 1986. So yeah, they're a little bit older. And they said that they met their future husband, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't believe I had never been told about this ritualistic garbage. I felt betrayed by my parents, future and ex-bishop.
Welcome to the club.
So are they just talking about once they, like, what are they talking about here?
It
like
looks
what ritualistic garbage? Is
so
there like
it says
dark moment that
she went to the temple. Well, she went to the temple for my endowment to get married. So all the weird stuff I told you about, that's what she's talking about here. And nobody tells you anything. They can't. For women, I guess this day that you go to the endowment, this is like the day in Scientology, and they're like, and we're ruled by a galactic alien emperor. And then you're like, oh my gosh. And then you're like, okay. And so then you go through there, and you're not usually getting married on the same day because it's a 2 to 3 hour thing. So you don't want to do it on the same day because it takes forever. And then you're just like, you go home. Like she said, like, why are there locks on the locker rooms?
Yeah,
like, why do I have to take off my clothes? Because
on the lockers in the temple.
You have to put your clothes in there. And I think that people make a lot of to do about that because, so yes, you should pass the honesty quiz, but like also would I want to leave my purse in there without a lock? I think this is more for this is less of a big deal for me. I think this is more for people that are like, I just want to lock up my credit cards. Like, I don't care if I'm at church, and I get it because I would want to lock mine up, and I did. And then you put the safety pin inside your little temple clothes because you can't wear your temple clothes there. You got to go in another outfit, and then you take your temple suitcase and you go, and then you take off your clothes, and you have to do. They don't do this touching naked body stuff anymore either, by the way. I had it happen to me. They took it out after, and it did screw me up. I'm not going to lie. So they didn't touch me sexually, but I was like, what the hell's going on? And that's when I had the poncho. Remember me telling you about my dumb little poncho? That's what she's talking about. And it doesn't cover anything. And people are like walking by you in the locker room.
I like that they point this out. Why are there locks in the locker temple? Didn't they just, because it's basically like saying like, wait a minute, I'm at the height of
church.
this big endowment in church, and you don't even trust each other. But this is one of the things in Masonry that they'll usually say is, and I guess it's not part of the company's script, but one thing I've heard a lot is that a Masonic lodge is a place that you could leave your wallet and drive away and come back a week later and know that like either no one touched it or it's been, and you would never consider having to lock something up in a Masonic lodge amongst the brothers. So the fact that there's locks at this height of the temple, I don't know, it's a foreshadowing of the future, maybe.
Well, and I think it's probably because they just don't want to deal with it at the temple level. Like you hope everyone is honest, but like ultimately we know that there's been a lot of problems in the church. But yeah, exactly what she described there is all 100% correct.
This one was wild to me too. So it says, when I was in high school, my brother and I were inactive and would sleep in on Sundays. One Sunday morning, the entire priest quorum came to our house, woke both of us up in our bedrooms, and proceeded to give us the priest lesson in our living room. I've never felt more humiliated or upset at the church, blah, 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 blah. And there's a whole bunch of people that are like, yeah, this happened to me too. Yeah, me too. How many people does this happen to?
But this doesn't surprise me. Yeah, this does not surprise me. And they will just show up at your house like for certain things. Yeah. I am sure with the PR problems now that they would not probably do this now, I bet. But yeah, if you start disappearing and not attending your meetings, then they would come to your house and ask you why and make you, they made obviously an issue there. And I could see it.
Wow, you're just showing up to a miner's bedroom and unannounced and just, okay.
I'm certain they would have had the parents' permission on this.
Yeah, it was probably orchestrated by the parents, I'm guessing.
That's my guess. Yep. I should ask my husband. I'm going to ask my husband because he was this kid. He would have been this one. I'm going to ask him if this ever happened to him, because I would think that it might have, because his mom would be the type to call, For
you just
real.
keep slapping the snooze button. They're all like in the room.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. Yep.
And
what she meant. Go ahead. What she meant by graduating from seminary, I also graduated from seminary, is from 9th grade till 12th grade, you have one full class. You don't have to go, but everybody does. In school, you go to seminary and you get, I have 4 years of studying like at a seminary level. Like they make you go, they don't make you, but your mom will. And so it's kind of like catechism since you were a Catholic. It's like that.
Yeah. But that's before you get to eat the fancy crackers.
Yeah. 4 years of that. So.
This was a good one. You were asking what's the quickest way to get out of Mormonism. So I found this thread.
I need my little paper and then let's see. Okay, this is going to be great. TBM is the Book of Mormon.
So the most serious sin in Mormonism is stealing their money. And this was a good one, but this was a secretary that basically said that they had raised like hurricane donations. And they raised about $100,000. And then it said that it went into general donations off the Salt Lake. I knew then it was fraud, and I knew it went right to Ensign Peak. What's Ensign Peak?
So Ensign is another faction of the management for the church. They also produce did produce a magazine every month that you pretty much have to buy, because you can't not have it unless... Well, now with the internet, it's different, but we used to have it because you go visiting teaching. And I don't know if it's just related to that, but it seems like it would have been one of the companies for that. Basically, I'm going to Google it while we talk.
So if you wanted to have a lot of money, Ensign Peak would be one of the companies you'd look into.
Yeah. Yep. And like I said, they have many investment things. So it says it's advisors in the investment manager for the assets of the church.
Okay, here's another wild one. This is just what's the craziest Mormon stories. And this one said, dinosaurs are from other planets used to make this earth, and they're here so we have faith. And then someone else said, not just dinosaurs, ancient civilizations older than 6,000 years ago were planted to make us have faith. What does any of that mean?
So they did used to say that we are not the first people that God made, and that there were other failed civilizations, which I almost kind of believe, but like in a different way. But yeah, that's basically what they said. Doctrine and Covenants, DNC says the earth is 6,000 years old. But then, they have, and who knows really about these cave drawings and stuff, how old they are, but whatever. But yeah, they do believe that the dinosaurs and ancient civilizations were made and that they failed the test. So we got to be good.
This one too. I remember in seminary learning the entire earth had a spirit and was going through a plan of salvation. It was baptized, flooded, and will eventually turn into a giant glassy Urim and Thummim. These are the things that you mentioned.
Urim and Thummim. You're going to die when you see them. Okay. I want you to look up Urim and Thummim because you're going to recognize the contraption because it's Masonic. It's very Masonic.
In trouble here?
No, I don't think so, because it's just something that looks. Put in Masonic. Urim.
Oh, now you're definitely going to get me in trouble.
Sorry, I don't know what else to do. Like, this is originally how Joseph Smith said he translated the Book of Mormon, okay, with these crazy glasses and a breastplate. Sound familiar? Like, this was a whole story. There's a story that you guys have about a guy. Oh, why can't I remember this? And it's like a whole story that sounds almost exactly like Joseph Smith's stories. And so anyway, see the breastplate thing and the glasses is how he originally translated it. But you guys have a story that's similar, and I'm sure you can't talk about it, but there is. And I'm going to look it up. Let's see, Urim Thummim story.
We didn't get rid of our death oaths in the 90s, like all those wimpy Mormons out there that couldn't handle
Yeah, exactly. So they say that was how he translated it. And when I was a girl, these special glasses are supposed to be like what helped him translate the Book of Mormon. And then all of a sudden this hat thing came out of nowhere. And I was like, this is the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. Like, I don't think so. This is a damn lie. And then guess what? Now the president of the church is putting on the hat. So there's that. It was like, actually, and then, it's like related to occultism too, like these whole things. So, I mean, it literally says various theories and practices involving belief and knowledge or use of supernatural forces or beings go right along with this Urim and Thummim. It came right up. It's the Jewish.
I mean, this is like some very magical stuff here, like creating a little.
I think they got rid of it for a reason. Yeah. I think there was a reason that they got rid of the Urim and Thummim thing. I think there's a reason that they got rid of there's another one about the Liahona, something called the Liahona. And it was like very occultic in nature. They got rid of them. Like, it's not the same story.
What about the earth has a spirit and it went through a baptism through the flood? Is this?
Oh yeah, through the flood. Yeah.
Is this like occulted now, or is this like in the Book of Mormon? Is any of this taught
It's just openly? We all know. Yeah, no, this is taught openly, and that the next time that the earth will be cleansed, it will be cleansed by fire. Yep. And that if you don't pay your tithing, you will burn.
But they take out the Urim and Thummim stuff.
Well, they still have it. They didn't collab it completely, but now they just say, well, no, he translated it with the peepstone and the hat. And I'm like, wait, what happened to the breastplate? They called it a breastplate of righteousness and the Urim and Thummim. And they're like, oh, well, it hurt his eyes. So that was that.
All right, let's see. I got a whole bunch more.
It's so fun. It's so fun how they change everything.
So this one, I looked into it. It's just a children's song. I've never heard
it. Okay, yeah,
though.
it is that's the favorite. Okay. Look out the window and what do I see?
Apricot trees.
Popcorn popping on the apricot tree. Yeah, that's a fun little song that you play with the kids to pay attention in primary.
Why is this a Mormon thing?
Spring has such me such a, I know this. Now I'm going to sing this all day. Popcorn popping right before my eyes. Then they do. I can take a handful and make a treat. A popcorn ball that would smell so sweet. Wasn't really real, but it seemed to me popcorn popping on the apricot tree. There you go. That proves that I was a Mormon.
But what makes this Mormon? And like, how come I have never heard of this before? Why is this so uniquely Mormon? I don't even see anything in here that makes it Mormon.
I wonder why that this is only taught to really young kids in primary. And I think it's just like a fun, because you do the hand signals with it. But sometimes I wonder back now, I wonder if it was indoctrination for something. So I don't know.
I mean, in my opinion, it kind of has to be some type of indoctrination for it to have lasted long enough.
It wasn't really real. Yeah. And for them to say it wasn't really real, but it seemed to me, right? Like, they're kind of teaching them indoctrination right there. Like,
so did you believe that popcorn came from apricot trees at any point because of the song?
No, but I thought it was the best part of primary because I knew all the hand signals and I wanted to be the best hand signaler. Like, I'm a very overachiever. So
they were like, this chick's got what it takes to do the secret handshake.
Yes. Sure. Yes, exactly. Yes. Let's see.
So here's an email sent. It says, "Good morning, brothers and sisters." Over the okay, so this was just like a them complaining that they're losing numbers, but it says over the last 3 years, the blank ward has lost a substantial number of faithful, strong, active families, and numbers are getting smaller. We've combined youth Sunday, primary, and priesthood classes.
Wow, that actually shocks me.
Time filling important ward callings, and then here's what they suggest. Reach out and touch those less active. That's showing up.
Yeah, they've been doing that
Sunday morning.
Help
LDS families find housing and employment, and then increase our numbers
in ward boundaries, which means in their church area. Ward boundaries means like, you know how you go to school and you have school boundaries? That's what they're talking about. And
you mean like
so they want them to move
property of a ward?
Because it's split. So like, you know how when you go to school and you go to find out what school you go to, that's how it is.
Okay. So. Like the school district.
Yep. Same thing. So they must almost be, but I have never seen them combine. So when I was young, all of go back up to where it says, okay,
the youth
combined.
Sunday school,
okay, the youth Sunday school and priesthood was never combined because they didn't want the horny teenagers together. And then the primary is the little kids 12 and under. And each one, when I went, like it was so populated that like they had to put the 7-year-olds alone, the 8-year-olds alone, the 9-year-olds alone, the 10-year-olds alone. Like they had each class alone, not just the primary, but the classes. They would do them by 2 years. So like 7 and 8s would go together, 9 and 10s would go together like that, you know.
So this is the opposite problem.
This is huge. Yeah, that's actually crazy. I've never seen anything like that. So,
and the last one says increase numbers through convert baptisms. Is that just finding like going door to door and you
somebody.
find someone? So
yeah, and they always tell you be a missionary. You go be the missionary too. Like
what's the full process there? Like, let's say that you're a missionary, you knock on someone's door and they're like, you know what? I'm open to Mormonism. Like, what are the steps? Like, how long are you waiting until
they're meaning something else? So this isn't the door knockers. They're meaning me. This was what I did as a teenager. I like this cute boy, but he's not Mormon. And then I say to him, I don't date boys that aren't Mormon. So you got to get baptized if you want to be with me. So I was the date to convert girl. I had 3 conversions. And they would come and get the missionary lessons. They would say, okay, I guess I'll listen to the missionary lessons. And then they have like so many missionary lessons. I can't remember how many, like 10. And then after they do that, they go and get baptized.
Does this get them the second base or third base? Like what? Like
I mean, no bases. You gotta wait. Yeah, you gotta wait till you get married in the temple. But you do get a kiss. You can have a kiss.
So is this like the Mormon version of like a body count? Like, yeah, I've converted. Like,
yeah. I mean, no, because they want you to only date people that are Mormon. So it's kind of actually bad that I had 3 because then that means I dated outside of what I was supposed to do, right? I'm not supposed to do that.
Well, but didn't you technically increase numbers?
Yeah, but they don't like that because then they say, oh, well, you won't get married in the temple if you date that guy. Because I dated a Roman Catholic guy. And then they were like, I got married to him. And they said, oh, you'll never convert a Roman Catholic. And I did. And we went through the temple a year later. And I went back and I was like, ha, but not really. I didn't give him the bird. But I was a little bit mad about that when I got married. They made me feel like dirt. They're like, we can't believe you as up as you are in everything. And you're so good. You're such a good Mormon that you would marry a non-Mormon. And I'm like, he's going to do it. And they're like, no, it never happens. It just doesn't. And it did. My grandma also converted my grandpa too. He was also Catholic.
See, it seems like you should get like extra like privileges or like a badge or something.
Maybe that's why they haven't thrown me out yet. Maybe they think I'll come back and like help
You're going
them.
to convert more Catholics. This one is, there are people saying this was so sad.
This is sad.
Just the dad sitting outside the temple while his daughter is being married. Is this because he's not a Mormon?
He's not a Mormon. He can't go. You can't go in and you can't get a special pass. You have to have been a Mormon to go to the temple. You already have to be a Mormon for a full year. So like my ex-husband, when we converted him, that doesn't mean he can just go. That means he has to wait for a full year, pay his tithing for a full year, do all the rules and meet with the bishops and do all the things and get all the priesthoods. And I mean, it's a huge thing before he can go in the temple.
Is there any way to get in the temple without paying money? Or like you have to pay tithings?
You have to pay.
What if you're unemployed?
Even if you're a farmer, even if you're like a farmer, you have to like give your sheep or you have to do something. And then if you're unemployed,
like
if you're they have farms, they produce their own food. And if you didn't have the money to pay, like literally, you would go volunteer. Like we have just down the road a wheat mill. We have a food processing mill where you would like go volunteer your time to make food for people that are on the welfare program or whatever. So they have all their own. It doesn't
sound like a bad program, to be honest.
I mean, they do take care of their people but they get double reimbursed for it. It's like fascinatingly wise because it like my bishop once told me, I said, if I pay you right this minute, I can't feed my kid. And he's like, no, it's okay. I'll pay your food bill. I'll give you this food. And they give you this. They don't just give it to you. You have to have the Relief Society lady come. So now you're embarrassed because now like multiple people know that you're kind of broke. And then they're like, okay, let me see how big your family is. How many milk do you need? How many cheese do you need? How much lettuce do you need? How much stuff do you need? And then they sign it at the end. And you take this paper and you go to the bishop's store. And the bishop's store is just like a grocery store. And you get everything that's on your list, like 4 canned stews. And the stews say Deseret on them. And then it has a picture of stew, and it's stew that was made by the church. Like it's the churches. You're not
Deseret,
getting,
or it has Deseret.
Yes. No, it says Deseret stew on it.
Isn't that the name of
because it's their brand name? Well, it was what we originally Mormons called Utah, the state of Deseret, until it got changed. Okay. So, and everything is called, unless they've changed it, it was called Deseret. That's their brand name. So like they have Deseret corn, they have Deseret hot cocoa. They have the only things they didn't have that were like store bought is like maxi pads and stuff like that. Like, I mean, they'll give you that, diapers. And they have them there. You don't go somewhere else. You just go there. Yeah. Put in, like Bishop's Storehouse. Yeah. See? Yeah. The stew right there. It wasn't bad, by the way. It's all homemade.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, just straight up just says beef stew, Deseret.
Yep. And then they have their own brand of everything. Like they have their own brand of peanut butter. They have their own brand of hot cocoa. That's why I say the caffeine thing doesn't make any sense because they actually produce it. Deseret brand hot cocoa, which has way more caffeine in it than coffee.
We talked about this before, and it technically the Book of Mormon says no hot liquids. It doesn't say anything about caffeinated beverages, but that's been stretched, I guess, to just include things.
Coffee and tea, only coffee and tea.
And wasn't it just because like some dude like couldn't drink hot liquids or something, and that was how?
I think
what's the story.
My personal opinion, and this is the joke. This is like a Mormon joke. Oh, see that Deseret Mills? You can go work there. That's right down from my house. Anyway, so the big thing was I think Joseph was having these meetings every day, basically at his house. And what is the thing that you're expected to serve if you're the wife? And they were kind of poor, is coffee and tea. You know, you go to somebody's house, they're going to say, would you like a cup of coffee? And she didn't like them spitting tobacco on the floor, which they did all the time. And so he was just like, straight up, God told me no cigarettes, no tobacco, none of that crap, and no coffee or tea. Because he didn't drink it anyway. And I think his wife was just like, that's enough of that, you know? And so, yeah.
It's good to be the king.
It is good to be the king. Well, better for the queen, right?
So here's another one. It just says, sometimes I tell myself it wasn't a cult, and then I remember we literally paid tithing to walk around a special building looking like this and did secret handshakes to get into heaven.
Yes.
This doesn't look that's
silly, what you wear when you get married. That's what you wear when you get married. You don't get to wear your wedding dress either, by the way.
And why is everyone else wearing hairnets?
They are baker's hats. If you zoom in on that, the men cover their heads, but they're kind of come up in the back. See this, guys, how it looks like a high and tight haircut. That's what they always reminded me of. It's that they're like a joke of a baker's. It's like a baker's hat, kind of in a way. That's just the guy's hat. And the girls wear veils. Is this
the like a yarmulke? Like you're hiding your head from God or something?
You're hiding your head. Yeah, you have to cover your head. Yep. And we used to have to cover our faces, but now I guess they don't do that anymore.
This one took me off guard. It says, once you know the Mormon church is just a super rich corporation and you realize you paid 10 grand to be a salesman for them. And they just got these two guys and then a bunch of people like, yeah, I wasted all this time and money. So I didn't realize you pay money to
pay for your own. You pay for your own mission. So for the 2 years that you're gone, it's a set rate for every family. And you have to pay to have a suit, a specific suit. It has to be within certain parameters. And then you have to pay a specific amount. Now, back in the day, it was like $300 and something a month to be a missionary for 2 years. Mm-hmm. You pay.
And where does that money, like, does this mean that all of your lodging and food and everything's taken care of?
No, not your food. I don't think they pay for the food. No, it's just your lodging.
So I've got a hypothetical here, and I might strain this one to the end, but I really am interested in how like this would break down. So let's say I'm the guy on the right, okay, and I'm a missionary, and I'm going around. Let's say I've got a bike, and I'm driving my bike around and knock on people's doors, and I go back out, and my bike is stolen, right? So now let's say I'm broke. I don't have enough money for anything. I go to the special pantry and they give me the beef stew. But then I tell them like, hey, I can't keep doing missionary work unless I get another bike. Who buys that bike for me?
That I'm going to Google. I don't know. I know that they sometimes give them a car. Like the car is actually given to them by the church just to use while they're on their mission. If the people are really far, like if you're in Iowa, sometimes houses are like you couldn't ride a bike.
Right. Let's say I had a car. Who procures that car for me? And then to take it to the next level, let's say my car is stolen. Like now what? And let's say the church gives me another car and then that one gets stolen. And let's say that happens literally every single day. Yeah.
So you have to report it within 5 days, and a bike of equivalent value to your original purchase will equipped with a kickstand will be sent to your mission office. A $100 fee paid at the time of purchase covers one replacement bike.
Okay. So what happens if they
But it says mission. But guess what? Reddit says mission doesn't pay for the bikes and will not replace them if they're stolen. So I don't know. Some guys saying, nah, bicycles are required in many missions and you are expected to provide them.
Right. Well, I'm just, I guess, thinking theoretically here, though. But if you don't have any money and someone steals your bike twice, so you've already gone through your replacement, what happens? Do they
So
bring you
this
back
lady's
home,
complaining
or-
9 months ago. Listen, this is Reddit. My son is on a mission. He and his partner had to purchase expensive bikes with locks, which is ridiculous. Well, guess what? Someone cut the lock and stole the bikes. Will the church reimburse them or buy them new bikes? They buy freaking $91 million warehouse in England for God knows what. It makes me so mad. Reason number 5,700 why I hate this church. Oh my gosh.
Were there any response? Like, what happens? I really want to know this. Because what happens if your bike gets stolen once a week?
I had one set of clothes and one bike, and they took my mountain bike. I didn't know what to do. So many people are saying. So many people are saying they just
apartment and just coast for the next 2 years, and then.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. They make sure the next one that they give them wrapped, and they also encourage missionaries in Chicago to wrap their bikes in black crappy tape to make sure it doesn't get stolen. So that's kind of funny. I don't even know. It's a huge problem. There's thousands of people talking about this, which is really funny. Well, and I would have never thought.
Is because do Mormons get part-time jobs while they're out on missions? Like, do they?
No, they cannot work. No. You can't
if your
work.
Bike gets stolen every week, what do you do?
Yeah. And you can, because also the only time you can be away from your partner when you're a missionary is when you're in the shower and in the toilet. So yeah, you can't go have a job.
Well, you can't talk to girls. Are getting stolen then. You can't even have one guy be on the watch out.
Yeah, they cheap it out. It says they make them as ugly as possible. This happens constantly in Chicago missions. No matter how heavy the chain is, it still got stolen. They're just complaining about it, but I don't see any answer. What do you do? So
if any Mormons out there know the answer to this question, I'm
who stole? Yeah, what do we do? Out. Yeah,
because if you don't have income coming in and you've already expended going, if you already bugged all the people you can bug and they've given you all the stew and they've given you all the bikes, is there a certain point when they're just like, look, man, it's not your fault, but your bike keeps getting stolen. We're calling you back home and you're no longer going to go on a mission again. We'll figure this one out. All right. That one's going to be unresolved.
It's rare that they would call you home, though, because you're there unless you have a mental breakdown or something. Or my neighbor, he had to come home because he was one of the first people in 2020 that caught the vid. And so he had to go home because they didn't know what was going to happen with the whole thing. And they did shut down a lot of missions then. And he was in Chicago. So I could probably, he's in the Marines now. I don't know if I can get a hold of him. But anyway, yeah.
I'm dying to know. I really want to know what happens if your bike gets stolen every week. So here's another one that piqued my interest. Missionaries messing with my doormat. So I guess that there was an atheist. There's someone that had a doormat that says, let's get high and deny Christ. Very welcoming doormat. But that multiple teams of missionaries have either covered it with trash or left little wallet-sized pictures of Jesus that say repent on the back. Yesterday, 2 new elders covered it again, and I opened my door, tell them to go away, and they had the gall to act like I was being the jerk, and they were just trying to spread the gospel.
Sounds very Mormon.
And then someone in here says, Mormon. Time to get their MP involved. What's an
missionary
MP?
President? Missionary president.
Okay, and then does this sound normal at all? This actually took me by surprise. I thought that this would be a horrible sin.
No, I could see it. If it's anything. So remember what I told you about bleeding the beast and how Mormons will feel justified to do certain things if they feel that you're not on your square, right? So they will come against you. Yeah, they definitely do.
Are there any limits on this? Is any of this sanctioned? Is any of this encouraged?
It wouldn't be sanctioned. This would just be, you have to remember, missionaries are 19-year-old, 18-year-old kids. They're kids.
Well, I like too that like their version of pranking is like, I'm going to put a picture of Jesus on his doormat. Like,
yeah, that's it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't be like much for somebody else, but I could totally see it for the missionaries because remember, they've given their whole everything up. Many of these boys, including my husband's nephew, gave up like full ride scholarships for baseball, full ride scholarships for school because they're getting them right out of high school, and they have to choose mission, where you pay $10,000 or go get $10,000 for school. And if you're a good Mormon, you're going to choose to go on a mission. So
that's wild. I'm just learned today that you actually pay to go on the mission.
You pay.
This is just an interesting one. It just says John and Logan, Utah. Your mom.
Not very far from me. Yeah.
It says, just a heads up. I was near the clerk's office. Your mom came in and gave the ward clerk your address. So your membership record could be moved out of your parents' ward, the ward you grew up in. She wants the bishop or missionaries to show up and set you straight. Apparently you've gone inactive and neither knew you or nor we've attend church anymore. So this is a mom that I guess every Mormon is registered, and they can go and say like, hey, my son in this city is acting up, and what they contact the Mormons in that city, and they go in, they knock on the door.
Yeah, they do this. So my grandma did this to me multiple times. What they do is they call your local missionaries through your ward clerk. Everything is you have to understand this church is super organized. So you have a president, you have like the missionary president, the ward clerk, the money person. Like it's very like a government. So yes, my grandma did this to me all the time. She would send the missionaries to my house constantly. I wouldn't doubt that some of my neighbors are doing that to me now because they come so often. It's weird. I love it when they come in my husband's home because I just don't have time for it. But my husband loves to mess with them. And he's like, they'll say, can we share a word from the Book of Mormon with you? And he's like, sure, as long as I can share a word from the Bible to recant it, because my husband's super quick on this. And I'm good about knowing the stories of the Bible, but I can't whip out like in John 3:7, like I know that one. But anyway, whatever, pick a different verse. And he's really good at it. And so he can like go back and forth with them. And the last time he got to the point where the sister missionaries were like, we got to go.
Do they have a time limit?
Actually funny.
Are they only
my son told him, no, they can stay as long as both of them are there and that there's a woman there, because if there's only a man home, the sister missionaries won't come in. But if there's a woman there, they can come in. Or if there's a man there and they want to be taught, either a woman has to come, which probably saved multiple missionaries' lives, by the way, because Ted Bundy was a Mormon and he converted. And this is exactly what happened is 2 really cute Mormon girl missionaries knocked on his door and they were like, hey, you should come to our ward and check out the church. And we do ward family night. And he's like, but I'm just a single guy. I don't have a family. Thanks anyway. And they said, no. Ward family means this would be your we would be your family. And he's like, you don't say, come on in. And they're like, JK, we can't come in by ourselves. We got to go get a guy for you. And so they did. And so he became a Mormon and he got baptized and everything.
Mormonism saves lives.
Yeah. Saved his life, their lives, not his life. And the girl he was with was also a Mormon before he went completely off the rails. The girl he lived with was a Mormon.
Do you think Mormonism had anything to do with him going crazy?
No, but I will say this, that he spoke about blood atonement before he died, which was super interesting. And I did look up why we were chitty chatting. And this is in 2019. It's $500 a month for the mission. I'm sure it's more now.
Okay. So more than 10 grand. So it's gone up a little bit. That's that Biden inflation for you. Even affects the Mormon per diem. This was It's a screenshot. It says what they're teaching my brother in seminary 2023. And here's, I guess, like a covert image, which would probably get you kicked out. But it says, it's important to remember that historical details do not carry the saving power of covenants, ordinances, and doctrine. To be distracted by less significant details at the expense of missing the unfolding miracle of the restoration is like spending time analyzing a gift box and ignoring the wonder of the gift itself. So this is basically, if you find a contradiction or if someone asks questions, just ignore it, essentially, right?
Yep. Well, they had a big campaign that was even more fun than this. It was don't doubt your doubts, don't doubt your faith. And then they would tell us, don't get on the internet. If you want to ask any questions, you got to go through our website or contact your bishop, which is like your leader. He's like your president in your area. And so you would not do that. Like if you felt uncomfortable, you're not going to do that. And so obviously, as Mormonism is getting more spread wide open on their history on the internet. See, they used to could just do this thing and be like, this isn't the real book, but they'd be like, oh, this book by Fawn Brody. Yeah. No man knows my history. I have it. It's upstairs. They're like, no, she's an ex-Mormon and she's an anti-Mormon. That's anti-Mormon propaganda. So you would never read that book. You would be told like, you don't read that book. You don't look at that stuff. You just don't do that. And so, but now they can't do that because it's Google. And so I'm sure it's getting worse and they're trying to like push to these young kids like, hey, nothing is worth what you're going to receive, basically. And
there was one I'll skip to that came up that reminded me of this. It was like, do I even have it? I think I closed it, but it was like Mormonism before, and it's like in Sunday school and they're like a sleeve, and it's like Mormonism after, and it's like they're Charlie in front of the conspiracy board, like putting all the red.
That is me. That's me.
The difference.
Did you get it when you saw it and you're like, I know that girl?
Yeah. Well, that's the person that has access to the internet, and then it's like looking up all these claims and stuff, and it has something more than I guess the Book of Mormon as reference.
Well, we just never knew everything. Like I'm telling you, as an earlier Mormon, like when I was a teenager, there wasn't an internet. I'm old. And so like there wasn't an internet until nobody could even afford internet that much until I was like in my later teens, like 16, you know? So this was an interesting time because we didn't know any of this stuff, like this magical world and this magical stuff and all this stuff. We had no idea. Church was what they told us. Church was what they indoctrinated us with. That was it. That was all we knew. And so we wouldn't even have questioned. It wouldn't even have been a situation unless you knew someone that was anti-Mormon and you were talking to them. Like you better freaking think again. Like you don't want to be caught talking to Jessie. She's like an anti-Mormon. No way. Her parents are weird. You know, they really kind of scared you. And I don't doubt that they don't still do that even worse today. So they threaten.
Seems effective.
Well, and the apostasy thing, you do know, they say the apostates go to outer darkness with murderers, like murder. So yeah, for a long time, it kept me right in, even though I didn't go to church. Like I didn't go and I didn't believe in it. But I also was like, oh, I'm not pulling that chain, you know, like forget that. My family.
Let's see. This is another example of one of those that came out. And it says, this is from Church News, which I guess is one of the official outlets for Mormonism. Elder Corbett. I don't know who any of these people are, or the names. And it says, parents, if your child struggles with gospel principle or prophetic teaching, please resist any type of evil speaking or activism toward the church or its leaders. These lesser secular approaches are beneath you and can be lethal to the long-term faithfulness of your child. So this is kind of the same thing, but from parents to children.
So this Elder Corbett, he's in the Quorum of the 70, which is big. So in the Quorum, there's the Quorum of the 70, and then there's the Quorum of the 12, and then there's the 3 top, which is the president of the church. And then he has his first, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget. It's his first guy and his second guy. I'll think of it in a minute. You're going to get
yourself kicked out if you're not careful.
I know, right? I can't even remember now. That's good. Anyway, first counselor and second counselor came back to me. And so that's what they have, but representing like the Trinity to me anyway, but whatever. And so they're high up. They're more high up in the church. They're running this bitch. That's like what that is. So especially the Quorum of the 12, that's like representing the 12 apostles. So
here's the one that I was thinking of. So the difference of, you know, when you're learning it versus when you're doing it as a hobby.
I have never learned more stuff about Mormonism than now. And I've never talked about it so much. Like literally my mom will say, so, cause sometimes I do conspiracies. It depends on who I'm talking to, but most people are like specifically seeking me out because I was a Mormon and they're like, oh, Mormonism, of course. Yes. Mormonism. I'm like, oh, that's why we kind of started that new series. Cause I was like over it. I was like, I want to talk about another thing, but I still do it. It's okay. I'm going to get some more slides together and change it up a bit so people don't get bored. Here it is. Yeah,
really popular.
Yeah, that's the quorum of the 12, and then the first counselor, second counselor, and the prophet of the church. Yeah, and then Joseph
so
Smith.
This is Mormonism summed up in one pick, and I guess just because a bunch of white dudes.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they do have some token ones now. I think they have one black guy on the quorum of the 70, I swear. Or maybe it's even the 12 now. But yeah, it's very
names at some point.
They kind of make you learn it. I remember from before.
No. Pop quiz you and just be like, who's the black guy?
But I used to know like Thomas S. Monson. Like you never just call them President Monson. You know their middle name and you know like all the things. And yeah, it was when I was in seminary. When I was in seminary, I was very astute. I wanted to be there. Most people don't want to be there and their parents are forcing them. I was a little bit different because I came from such a chaotic upbringing that I actually liked it. So yeah, go me.
You see this wall and get excited.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I know them.
This one is I guess this is the people that went to your house and they talked to your husband.
Yeah. Well, no, they probably talked to my son because my son's 16. And instead of saying we're apostates, he's like, I'm on crack right now. And I just can't really listen to you because I'm really high. I'm like, you did not say that to them. They're going to call people on you.
Well, and I've learned that too, because my dad used to do that just to be an ass. But we learned pretty quickly that all they do is they just write your name down in their little books. Yeah. And then someone else comes by. Almost out of spite, like, oh,
it's like
the door. They need
the better. Yes, they will never go away. It's the better people. It's like they start with like, hi, I'm the new missionary and I'm scared and I don't want to talk. And then they're like, ooh, this is way above me. And so he's starting to quote Bible verses. Oh my gosh, we don't study the Bible. So then they're like, we need the bigger guys, like the guys that have been out on the mission field for like 20 months and almost ready to go home. They send them. They're like, we need an elder missionary. Like we need somebody senior here. So
I've had old missionaries pop like 60s pop up at my door before.
Yeah, they know all the things. And that's a ward missionary. So the ward missionary is called, because this is all very diplomatic. They're called in every single church. They have a ward missionary. My grandma was the ward missionary. And then they're just the people that they send out. And they don't go anywhere. They just are in your actual neighborhood and they live here. And if somebody needs backup, they're the backup guy or girl.
Forever?
Whatever. No, usually it's 2 years. My grandma was called, they have certain missions that are special too. Like my grandma was called to a family history mission. So all she did was genealogy because she loved to do computer stuff. And it was back when computers were just really pretty new. But my grandma was savvy and they were like, call her. She seems to know what she's doing. And so she like would do all the stuff and put in all the information for people.
So if Mormons want free work from you, they just call it a mission and assign you to it.
Yes. And then you feel super important because you get the little tag. You get the tag, you feel super important.
Is there like a VIP section at heaven when you get there based on like how many cool things you did for the Mormons?
I mean, like Mormons have VIP for everything. They're very, I betcha.
Let's see. This was just, I assume this is Joseph.
I know what this is about. Nope. This is Brigham Young.
Okay. And this is Brigham Young.
This is at BYU. And this happened. I know about this because he was a racist and he was quoted by saying it's better to kill your wife if you find her in bed with a black guy than to let her live. And you should just spill her blood.
Quote.
No, that's him. This is the guy. So he also said, let's see. Oh, we should buy all the Native American children. He did say buy. And we should put them in our schools so that they can become more white and delightsome. And then like a couple prophets later, the guy said, and look at how white and delightsome the Native American, our native brother. And they call him Lamanites, because Laman is in the Bible and he was darker skinned. Our Lamanite brothers have become more white and delightsome now that they have joined our church. I'm like, and you killed all the people they could mate with, but that's irrelevant. They're now mating with white people. So of course they're more white and delightsome. Hello. Yeah. What? Yeah. So there's that.
It's a nice tagline. It really does make it sound like you could commit a genocide and then say white and delightsome. And it sounds like you're selling Wonder Bread. Yeah. It sounds great.
And Hitler didn't get this much trash over the Jewish stuff. Like, yeah, he got in trouble, but like the Mormons just make it sound so good that they just let them go ahead.
If you've ever heard Hitler speak, it's very aggressive. It's very like
rah, 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 rah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not what you're talking about before. It's not that like very sweet, almost effeminate like cadence that the Mormons have. Imagine if he talked more effeminately, how much farther he might have gotten.
See? Yeah, they immediately went after him. He was talking about the same stuff. Brown hair, brown eyes, brown skin. Same stuff. They were doing the same stuff.
It's the way he said it.
How he said it. He said German is scary. And you know what? Asian languages also are often very frightening, kind of. They always sound angry, but they're not. And some Latin people.
Especially if you've grown up Mormon, everyone sounds angry, I assume.
Yeah. Not for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank heavens. That's great. I can handle that. Because people used to always say to me, oh, Heidi, you are a nurse. Do you date doctors? I'm like, oh my gosh, no. I'm like, you think I would date a pointy shoe guy? The pointy shoe guys that sit with their legs crossed like women? No, absolutely not. Because I'm traumatized.
Academia does to you. Lifetime in academia will kind of turn you that way.
Traumatized. Ugh. Yucky.
So this is just a meme of many, and a lot of people were getting.
I wonder if Bill Gates is in this volcano. Oh wait, sorry.
You think volcano and not think Scientology too, but it says volcano wipes out city of 20,000 people, leaves more evidence than Book of Mormon, and then there's memes where someone's like, "Look, I got a tattoo of all the evidence of the Book of Mormon," and it's just like an empty arm.
Yeah, it's because
is this true? Is there really zero evidence?
There is no archaeological proof of anything. So he says, okay, so the Hill Cumorah you can go to. And my grandma took this trip to the Hill Cumorah and they were all excited about it. And it's just a hill. But if they say that there is this war on the Hill Cumorah, it's with us. Yeah, there. Yep. Okay. So this is the hill that he dug up to get the plates. Okay. And it's supposed to be a record of their people. And they are supposed to have, and that's probably the Joseph Smith house right there. Because remember how I joked and said it was in his backyard? Like that's his house. So anyways, he says that there was this big, huge battle on this field and it killed out these people. And this is a record of their people. And that's why Nephi came and gave him the plates and said, this is where they are. And this was our people. So you got to find the plates and make it all a thing. So, but there's zero evidence. And when you ask people, and I have a little short on this that's silly on YouTube, I'm like, where's the plates? Where's the swords? Where's all the dead people? Where's the battle? Like you can go to these battle things like for other battles that were real in the Civil War. And there's like swords and dead people's heads and, whatever. And it's all this stuff. But supposedly this was way bigger war and there's nothing. And now they're starting to cover it in trees and stuff so that it can't be dug up. So that they would be like, well, that would be ruining the environment. So apparently the plates had to go back to the angel. That's what happened, just so you know. Yeah.
So this Hill Cumorah apparently had something at the scale of the Civil War fought on it.
Yes. And there's nothing. There's no dead people. There's no armor. There's no swords. There's nothing. And we know with these
explanation for that.
Nothing. They're not going to say
we don't talk about it.
Yeah, they don't say nothing. They're just like, well, yeah, the angel needed those plates. What? And then they're like, well, it's so old that and now it's a sacred site. You want us to dig up our sacred site? Like, how dare you clutch my pearls? Like they're never going to have any kind of, like, they could prove it. Like, with the Bible, we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. With the Bible, we have all this other stuff. Like if you talk about the flood, it's talked about in lots of other countries and lots of other ways, like not necessarily biblical, but there's nothing for Mormonism, like zero, to substantiate this book. So that's why it's a huge joke. My husband loves that one, by the way. That's like his favorite. He talks about it all the time.
This is new to me. This is exactly why we're talking about all this, because this is
yes.
great. Let's see what else. We already talked about the hot drinks. I like your theory on all of this. It is interesting.
They also do say the tannic acid. This is what my grandma told me, because I said, okay, Grandma. Yeah. And so I'm like, Grandma, like, why do we drink Pero? Okay, there's this drink called Pero, Pero, and it's a barley coffee. My great grandma used to drink it every morning because she liked the taste of coffee, and it does taste just like coffee. And so they can drink that, but they can't drink coffee. And so they can drink Mountain Dew with tons of caffeine in it. They can drink Rock Stars. They can drink all the things, Red Bull, whatever. But they can't drink coffee. Do you know that that's what they tan hides with, Heidi? Yeah. I was a very questioning child. It didn't work well.
If you're not allowed to drink Mountain Dew, I'm out. So if the Mormons are listening out there,
they still can. They can drink Mountain Dew.
So Nimrod, I don't know out of different contexts.
I know.
Apparently Nimrod's a big thing in Mormonism.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, the biblical Nimrod was a hunter. And this came up. I just had to point this out. And if anyone else didn't know this, it says Bugs Bunny accidentally transformed the word Nimrod into a synonym for idiot because no one got the joke that he was sarcastically comparing Elmer Fudd to the biblical Nimrod, a mighty hunter. That blew my mind because it did. Because I always remember Nimrod was used for him to call him an idiot, and then Beavis and Butthead would call each other Nimrod. So that solidified Nimrod as like an idiot. And I always wondered why is the word Nimrod translate to idiot? I've never seen a context when Nimrod was an idiot, and this kind of explains it. But what's the big Nimrod play in Mormonism?
I mean, they're not going to specifically talk about like anything, mostly just Joseph Smith, but I know they get into like Nimrod talk a little bit. They go into Quetzalcoatl a little bit. They get into some weird stuff. And honestly, it's so much that you're just like, what? Like, I really didn't get into it till I got out of it. And now I know in a different context, like you probably, like biblically, but they don't even study the Bible. So I don't know what they're saying here. Let's see.
Are there, and it's talking about like the Tower of Babel. Of Mormonism.
I mean, they taught us that definitely, but I don't know that I wouldn't say that they specifically study it more than anything else. Like they just kind of mention it, but I wouldn't say that they worship him or anything. I've never heard much about it other than with the Tower of Babel. Unless it's a priesthood thing.
The last one I had pulled up here is one that Andreas was pointing me to, but have you ever heard of this? The Mormon Extermination Order?
What?
So Missouri Executive Order 44 was a state executive order issued by Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs in 1838 in the aftermath of the Battle of Crooked River, which was one of these battles between the Mormons and a state militia in northern Ray County. But this essentially was an executive order that used the term extermination.
Whoa. No, I've not heard this.
Later clarified he didn't seek bloodshed or the annihilation of the Mormon population should they surrender. But that's sort of a way of saying like, but if you don't surrender, then we will annihilate you.
Order 44, huh? Mormons.
Yeah, Missouri Executive Order 44. So.
I'm going to check into this. It doesn't surprise me. I know there were many Mormon battles and they literally called them wars because you have to understand they were extremely well populated, if nothing else, and had a big, huge army of their own. And it was making everybody real nervous. And they still do believe, if you go back, they still do believe Jackson County, Missouri is where Garden of Eden is.
Well,
It's
right,
like,
and that's this part right here of Zion. So, 1831, Jackson County is designated as the place of Zion, the sacred site where Mormons believe they would gather and prepare the second coming. This is almost the battle over
the Morning
Jerusalem.
Star. That's interesting.
This is where the magic comes back in.
Dun dun dun. That's fun. I'm going to look into this. I knew about the problems, but I didn't know it was like a literal order. I knew there were wars, but I didn't know this, which is great.
This is pretty wild. Do you know of any presidents or politicians that were favorable to Mormons back in the day?
I know who played ball. Let's see. The one after Brigham Young, what was his name? Played ball the best. Let me see. President of LDS who stopped polygamy. He was the only reason why, and I think it was the one that became Wilford Woodruff. He was the only one that understood, like, hey, we got to cut it out, at least on the level of like, we're showing this off and F everybody, because he was the one that wanted to become a state. He was like, they're not going to let us be in the United States anymore. And all these wars have been happening and we've had like tons of people dying. Like, we've got to play ball. We've got to stop this nonsense and so he put the order in to have it stopped from here on out. And that's where there was like a lot of people that were like, hell no, we're not doing that. Like, and they went and broke off and other people broke off. And so then they didn't think he was the real, president of the church. And there was a lot of stuff from that. But I would say that he tried his hardest to be politically correct. And maybe that's where that started to come in. Like, now that's more how it is, right? Like, you see that more now because they finally figured out this is not working. Like, they're going to annihilate us, basically. And I don't think that it ever went away at that time. I think it basically went underground at that time, but then it was weeded out. And then it was a true split of the church. Like, then the fundamentalists went their way and said, no, this is the real prophet. And the mainstream stayed the mainstream. So yeah, it was a situation because they couldn't get statehood. They couldn't stop fighting. And I think, with the government, the army came out multiple times. The reason why you should look at the building of the Mormon Salt Lake City temple, they kept having to bury parts of it and different stuff that they talked about because they said, they were trying to hide it, that this was happening, because every time they would get close, then the army would send like people out and they were like, oh crap, hide that again. So it was one of the longest production to get done. The St. George temple actually was finished first. And they said it was mostly because constant army intervention, like they were constantly coming and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of, it's a story. I would have to check on validity, but I'm pretty sure, like from what I can pull out of my brain from seminary class, but.
And now it's like the defining character in the skyline.
Right. It is. It's like and it's one of the most renowned for sure. Like, there's many temples and they're all pretty. The new ones are very odd. The ones that are going up now, they're not putting any more Moroni on the top. They're not doing that anymore. They're not putting the angel on the top.
But they do have the baptism.
They have a spire. Yeah. And they have the spire still, but they just took away the angel, which they've never done. But I find that kind of interesting. And they're small. They're a lot smaller. They're not as grand. There's more of them closer together and they're less big and less grand, basically. So more like a regular church, like a fancier church, but not like on the level.
Show up one and they just have like a kiddie pool with like some inflatable cows propping it up.
No, but they used to do stuff like this in their houses before there was a temple. They used to do temple ordinances in people's houses because they didn't have a choice. Nothing was done. And so, yeah, that's interesting. And the Nauvoo temple is a big deal because the Nauvoo temple thing was like, it was a whole big situation with that county, and it had to be like taken down and then put back up. And that's where we're going to supposedly go back to in the end days, to Jackson County. And it's a whole big story that you're terrified with when you're young. Like, this is the end of the world will happen when, kind of like how we hear, like when the temple goes back up over in Israel, like that whole situation, how we're all waiting for that. Biblically, it's the same thing with the temple in Jackson County, Missouri. So, and that will be the time.
That signifies the end of the world is coming.
Yeah. But then who knows how close that is, right? Like they even if they're wrong, they'll just cover that up. And it's funny that the people that are Mormon, even a guy at work the other day, he saw my books. I was studying at work in between, and we're on the night shift, and he's like, "Oh, your book." And I was like, "Oh boy, here we go." Cause I knew he was a Temple Mormon, and he's like trying to tell me stuff. And I'm like, "No, that's wrong. No, this year. No, that's not right." Like, they kind of know, but they don't know. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Thank you for your information. Like, bye." I don't know. They're like,
are you worth bonus points if someone can like convert you back into Mormonism again?
I would be impossible. No way. None of that for me. I'm passing. It's a hard path.
If someone were able to do that theoretically in some other dimension,
would I be worth any? Nah,
like,
they don't care.
Like, can they go
Especially
back
I'm a girl.
with a scalp and be like, "Hey, I got this ex-Mormon converted back," or would they be like, "We didn't even want her"?
Yeah, who knows with me being a girl? Maybe if I was a guy that held like secrets. If I was like, when they lose people that are bishops or like higher up, they get a little worried, because those people do know things that I don't know, because they've got the priesthood. You know, they've got something that I don't got. I mean, like, I don't get to learn all that. I'm love
the idea of like a Mormon closer out there, like the guy that you send in to get like the high profile, like, you know, that Scientology's got to have one that once they realize there's some starlet that's about to be on the
enforcer,
them out.
Yeah, like who's coming after Leah Remini, like, right, like something like that. Like, she's talking. Oh man, go get whatever his name is. George. I feel maybe George.
Yeah, or whatever happened to Shelley Miscavige too. Whoever took care of her.
Right. Oh, she was definitely. Who knows? She's safe. If you read the article, she's safe.
Yeah, right? Don't worry about her. You're not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry about her anymore. She's safe.
There was one other Reddit thread. I guess I had closed it, but it was just describing something in like childhood that seemed so benign, but that they had gone to this carnival. It was like a Mormon LDS. Everyone's going to go to the fair together, and they were winning tickets. And then just like tickets at the carnival, you can use them to like get treats or get stuffed animals and all this. But they also had an option to donate your tickets to like those less fortunate, I guess. And that if you donated the tickets, then other people that didn't earn tickets could get stuff. And this person was saying that they went and they earned all these tickets, and they were just like getting all these cool toys and treats. And someone, like one of the elders or one of the adults there, sent them to this room. And once they got to the room, they were told to go to the terrestrial realm, and that there was other kids that got sent to the celestial realm, and that anyone that donated their tickets went to the celestial room. And the celestial room was a room that had like cake and candy, and you could dance and you could like watch movies. And then in the terrestrial room was a smaller room where everyone had to stand like nut to butt and not say anything and just hear someone preaching at them. Like, and I understand what's going on and why, but is this like a normal thing? Like, what is this terrestrial and celestial stuff? Is this?
Oh, you don't know? Oh, no. Okay. So those are the levels of heaven. So he's trying to convey to this child about the 3 levels of heaven. So Mormons don't have one heaven. They have the telestial, the terrestrial, and the celestial.
Okay. So this is the VIP we were talking about.
Yes. And so celestial is the highest you can get. And celestial, you cannot go to the celestial kingdom unless you've gone through and got your temple endowments. And if you go back to Joseph Smith, unless you have 3 wives. Well, probably Brigham Young. But anyway, 3 wives back in the day. And fundamentalists still feel that way. And then the so you can go down, like if I made it to the top and my grandma was down one, I could go down and visit her, so then we've got the terrestrial. Oh man, I always mess these two up. Which one is the next one? The terrestrial or the telestial? So telestial kingdom, LDS. Let's see, the 3 degrees of kingdoms of glory of heaven. And then one of them's the worst. And it's kind of like living here on earth and we still have all our problems. And we still have, like, if you're addicted to, it's the 3 degrees of glory. If you're addicted to alcohol, like you'll see alcohol and you'll be tortured because you can't have it, but it'll be there, but you can't drink it. And like all this stuff. So, because you are being tortured because you let it mess with you in life. You let it, So it says the Lord has described those who will inherit the telestial kingdom are those who profess to follow Christ and or the prophets, but willingly reject the gospel, the testimony of Jesus, the prophets, and the everlasting covenant. So then it says the terrestrial will be composed of those who receive the presence of the Son of God, but not the fullness of the Father. So you'll see Jesus, because remember, they don't believe in Trinity. It's separate people. They will dwell in the kingdom with their terrestrial bodies. Telestial kingdom is reserved for individuals who did not receive the gospel and the Son of God and his testimony. So like if you're living in the middle of Africa somewhere, and you never got told about Mormons and you didn't know, well, you certainly aren't going to be sent to hell for that, but you're going to wait in the telestial kingdom until Heidi goes to the temple and does Moho Juba's stuff in Africa. And I go through and take out his endowments and now he can ascend. That's why we do it, because they're all in this big waiting room in the telestial kingdom. And so the terrestrial kingdom is more like a punishment. Like you already knew, and say, like my husband is a good example. He knew about it and he was 16 when he left. He knew sort of about the prophet stuff, but he didn't really buy it, but he got the opportunity. He definitely had the opportunity to go take care of that himself. So therefore he doesn't really qualify to go up.
But this is still heaven though, right? It's just like an unpleasant heaven?
Yeah, it's a lesser degree of glory is what they call it. And then there is, so the 3 glories, and then there's outer darkness, which outer darkness is reserved for apostates and for murderers. And they are in the absence of nothingness. So God and Jesus and you just don't get to ever be in their glory ever. You're just in darkness. So that's what happens.
And then there's hell on top of that, which is even worse, right?
I don't know that they specifically, I have to Google that. I don't know if they're Sheol type hell for them. Like, let's see. Is
the worst possible thing is that you'll just be in nothingness?
Yeah, well, that's only for murderers and apostates, even if you do the worst thing. So it says they speak of hell in at least 2 ways. First is spirit prison. So temporary place for those who died without the knowledge, which is what I just talked to you about, like the telestial too. And then, or who were disobedient. So I don't know that they really believe in hell. It's just like, you're punished kind of in those other kingdoms because you still have your same problems like you would on earth. You still have those same addictions. You still have your same problems. You still suffer. There's still suffering. But celestial is like all that's gone and you dwell with God and you have a literal place like a home. I remember being in seminary and drawing like my home in the celestial kingdom with God and like what it would look like. And he prepares a mansion for us. All that's at the top. And then all the rest of this is like lesser. So, yeah.
Do you think there's anyone that's got like bigger walk-in closets than their neighbors in celestial heaven?
Definitely, probably.
There's even going to be like levels within the levels then.
I truly believe. They've got this diagram. Let me pull this up. Okay, so yeah, there is no like actual like hell. There's only the celestial, terrestrial, and telestial kingdom. If you put in the plan of salvation in there, LDS, and then it should bring up this weird diagram. like with the different heavens and the spirit world and all this stuff. Yep. This is the one here that I'm looking at. So
Yeah, this looks like homework.
It's really big homework. And so, yes. And spirit world is like, if you didn't have any of it and you just suddenly died, like you're chilling, you're waiting to have somebody do something. It's like a big waiting room, I guess, or maybe that's the actual world. Hold on. Because they're talking, Earth life. Okay. Spirit world. Yeah. I saw Earth now. So we also lived before. Like they feel that we had a full existence, that you went down and you saw your mom and dad and you're like, that's going to be my parents, even though they're weirdos or whatever, like mine, like, even though I'm going to have this horrible childhood and my dad's going to go to prison and my mom's going to have this hard life. Like I picked them, and that I specifically was meant for them, and that I'm just chilling up in the premortal existence, but I'm waiting for them to make me. And so that's where we go back to the ghost babies. So that's the ghost babies area. And then Earth life, we come here, then we die, then you go to the spirit world, which is like a holding until you're judged and all that. So it's before final judgment. So, and then
how do you
outer
get
darkness.
fast-tracked in the spirit world, or is it like you just get in line and it's
We're waiting for the resurrection of we're waiting for the second coming for final judgment, just like all
so
Christians.
You might be waiting for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like this is their plan of salvation. Yeah. And celestial's the best. So I wish but honestly, if you've ever looked at the Kabbalah, this is real familiar. Like, I don't know, anyway.
Oh, almost like a Sephiroth. Are you talking about?
Yeah, I kind of feel like he got his hands on. Yeah, there's a lot of like similarities with Kabbalah and Mormonism. If you look it up, there's also a lot of similarities with the Muslim religion. Like they just, yeah. I think he had his hands on many books. I think he was super smart, and I also think he channeled demons. But that's just me. That's just me.
We'll get into more on that one on our next episode here.
Yes, because we don't want to go to demons now. Yes, Mormon Mondays cannot be 12 hours long.
So we'll, is there anything that I should dig into to bring up for the next one?
I will send you some stuff. I think it would be interesting. Definitely look up Blood Atonement. Watch Under the Banner of Heaven. It's really interesting. It's a fun show to watch, honestly. And that will give you. Yes, it's all about the Lafferty murders. So, but there's stuff that they do on the temple is correct. And so it's kind of nice to see something that's portrayed correctly. And people always say that can't be true, or this can't. I'm telling you, I did it a lot. It's true. Like, it's right. And so if you watch that show, it gives you a really good basis, and it's a multi-series show. It's not like a one and done. It's super interesting. Like I said, the Lafferty brothers.
3 or 4 different Mormon cult shows out right now. Like I've seen a handful of them. Yeah,
this one was a little bit ago, and Dan Lafferty is still in prison. He's still alive and well. He's still super crazy. He still thinks he is Elijah. He thinks that one day he's going to wake up and the prison walls are going to fall down and he's just going to walk out. And he thinks his brother was the son of Satan and that he is the son of God, because this is a story they tell us in church. And if you listen to his interviews, and I'm going to send it to you because you'll be like, what? He literally was so indoctrinated, and people that aren't Mormon listen to it. Like when you listen to it, you'll be like, oh, he's wacko. But when I listen to it, I'm like, no, this is everything we learned. He was super into it. Like when I listened to that, I'm like, he had no chance, Janice. He had some mental illness. And then you put like together with all this indoctrination, and then his dad beat him a whole bunch. I'm like, yep, I could see it. Like, I mean, he slit her throat because that's blood atonement. And the blood atonement goes back to why. Also, it's interesting that Utah is one of the last holdouts on the firing squad. Okay. They still had this shit. I think they might still do this. I don't know for sure, but a few years ago, they definitely still had the firing squad. And Ron, his brother, was supposed to die by firing squad. But it goes back to Cain and Abel, the first murder that we know of in the Bible. And why? Because it spilled his blood to the ground. Okay. There's something about the spilling the blood to the ground, because even when God came and said, hey, where's your brother? He said, what? I'm not my brother's keeper. But why did God come? Because he heard his blood from the ground. It's kind of interesting. I think there's some weird connections there. But if you also want a fascinating murder case, look up the Lori Vallow case. That's very recent, super weirdo stuff.
And I assume also Mormon related.
Yep. She was a Mormon. He got this guy she got tangled up with. And I'm doing Lafferty's soon with blood atonement. We're only focusing on people that were Mormon and had something weird like this. It doesn't have to be murder, but like even Charlie Chaplin. My next episode has to do with Charlie Chaplin. You would be shocked about how many Mormons are involved in like weird stuff, just random stuff.
Charlie Chaplin, a Mormon?
No, but his driver was. He was also a stone cold murderer. And my next episode is about this on blood atonement. So,
and where can people find the blood atonement series?
Blood Atonement series will only ever be on Patreon. We did it separate from my regular. It's not to do with Unfiltered Rise because I'm doing a collaboration with someone else. So it is behind a paywall. It will stay that way. But after Blood Atonement is over, or if we just continue, I mean, there's a lot of them. I don't know how long this can go on, but let's pretend that it ended for some reason. I would still continue to do 2 extra episodes a month because I feel like that's fair for less than a fancy cup of coffee.
2 a month. I assume that there might be like 5 bad Mormons in all of history. So aren't you just going to run out of episodes after you do like the first 5?
You might be shocked at how many Mormons are involved with everything. And Lori Vallows is really sad. If you haven't heard about that case, she killed her kids. So she thought they were zombies. You might want to check it out. It's pretty damn interesting. It's horrifically sad, but pretty damn interesting. Like, obviously, people are like, oh, don't sensationalize murder. But like at the end of the day, with me being a mental health nurse, I'm in it for way more than look at this scary picture. I'm trying to figure out like what's going through this person's head and why, right? Like there's more to it than that. So,
well, just to be clear, I am anti-zombie. So you're not going to catch me standing up for pro-zombie rights at any point.
No, I'm glad of that because we're friends and I would need somebody to back me that's no zombies allowed.
All right. Well,
so check it out. Yeah.
This was a good one. I'm glad you brought up your new Patreon only show, Blood Atonement.
Yes.
Unfiltered Rise podcast. Is there anything else you want to shout out before we go?
Nope. I think that's everything. I think we're good. And Exmo Joe does blood atonement with me. I do want to say that. And he's great. And he is huge on TikTok. That's his kind of medium. He's a huge TikToker and he's great as well. Check him out. Hellfire Agency, Exmo Joe.
All right. And I forgot who my sponsors were. Who are my sponsors?
I think today they should be like outerdarkness.com.
Outer Darkness and Telestialupgrades.com. If you somehow got condemned to the Telestial Kingdom for a small price of less than $10,000, we can get you upgraded or at least fast tracked into the Terrestrial Kingdom. Is that how that works?
And if you're
or is it the other way around?
And if you're bored, you can go to hillcamora.net for really good artifacts and pictures of artifacts on t-shirts of all of the evidence they found there. They're great.
I like that. I think Hill Camora, we might be able to actually secure that one if no one has it yet.
I think we should do it. We should make some t-shirts for this stuff. This is actually funny.
We'll come up with an intro at least.
Yes. And some stickers.
Well, until next time, this was another monthly Mormon Monday. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Come on down, you bring the magic staff, and I'll bring the sin. Nobody knows about the trouble we're in. Come on, let's make some Nephilim.
It's the Nephilim Portal Baby playset. Comes with a fallen angel, Nephilim baby, and portal to another dimension. One of the Paranoid American playsets. Collect them all at paranoidamerican.com.
Disclaimer: these are custom art creations and not toys meant for wimpy little new world order babies. Don't eat the art. Don't sue the artist. For more details, visit paranoidamerican.com.